What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. And you guys are probably seeing the title right now and already typing your comments. Just, you're the dumbass, you love dumbass, and you're coming up with these ideas. No. By the way, guys, his name is Cal Dubas. Just letting you know. But we're
Oh
talking about
boy.
PK Subban. Is he an option for the Maple Leafs now? Please watch the video before you make a judgment. You can have an opinion, but let's not get too crazy. You guys can see a familiar face right now, and that is DTSB Downtown Sports. How's it going, man?
It's going awesome and stuff like that. And exactly what you said, right? We're just trying to have some fun in quarantine. This is not the absolute one true solution for next season. We're probably going to be doing a bunch of videos like these on just a couple of different players and whatnot. And we're not saying that, yes, they should definitely do it. I mean, you're going to have to watch the rest of the video to find out what we're saying here, because we're going to tackle it from a couple of different angles.
Right. There's going to be a lot of information here. We're not saying order your PK Subban jerseys. We're just saying that this could be an option, and there's probably going to be a lot of players that fit under this category. So be on the lookout for more videos. Before we get started, make sure to go and subscribe to Downtown Sports. His link is listed down below. Yeah, let's get him to 1,000 subscribers, and that'd be really good. But we're going to get into some numbers here. So let's get on with the video. All right, so here we are. We've got some stuff on the screen for you. First, we got cat friendly, but we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things. And as you can see, right now you're seeing PK Subban's cat friendly right now. We all know he's an Energizer Bunny player. He can hit, he can score, he can put up points. And he had a bit of a rough year with the Devils. The Devils had a bit of a rough year. And we're kind of going to be talking about that because a lot of teams might need to shed some money. Of course, the Devils are one of those teams. Hell, the Leafs are one of those teams. So it could be interesting, but teams are going to be looking to shed some money, and compliance buyouts might be a thing that the Devils want to use. And they might have a couple players that they want to use these compliance buyouts on. Now, DTSB is really good with this stuff. So I want him to kind of explain why or what a compliance buyout is, and why the Devils and, teams like the Maple Leafs might be able to utilize them.
So basically, if we throw it on over to this Wikipedia article on compliance buyouts, the main thing that I want to point to is the first sentence here in the second paragraph, saying that due to the 2012-13 NHL lockout, the salary cap was not to increase to the projected $70.2 million. So each team was therefore granted 2 compliance buyouts to be exercised after the 2012-13 season, and or after the 2013-14 season that would not count against the salary cap. And basically, the salary cap is not meeting that lower end projection of $84 million this season. There's just no way that that's going to happen with what's been going on in the world and whatnot. But what we have to remember here is that the NHL owners and the NHLPA sets the salary cap at what they want it to be, what they're comfortable with here. And there's been talk of it maybe going up to $82.5 million and then freezing for a couple of seasons. And that's something that we could see. But Chris Johnson on the latest Steve Dangle podcast saying that I think he said that he would eat his shoe if the salary cap went down. So
yeah, he was pretty adamant about it.
I mean, I trust Chris. I mean, and I know that you do. So I mean,
Yep.
he's probably one of the better reporters out there. So the salary cap looking like it's either going to stay flat at $81.5 million or increase for a little bit and then freeze for a bit. But regardless, the last time compliance buyouts were awarded to teams, it was because that salary cap didn't meet that initial projection or the bottom end of it, and it's not going to do it again this time. So I think it's only a matter of time before the NHL announces these compliance buyouts after we find out what's going to happen with the rest of the regular season and the playoffs, which, I mean, you've already shared your opinions on that, right, Andrew?
Yeah, it's the season's done. So yeah, basically to sum it up, we're not getting an increase on the salary cap. Maybe not a ton. We might get a little bit, but it's definitely not going to be a lot. And teams like the Devils and teams like the Leafs could utilize it however they want to. But teams like the Devils, they have a few contracts that they might want to be, getting rid of. And whether or not they get one or two, some teams could get in. It could get interesting for some teams. Some teams might even need 3 compliance buyouts, but they would have to get crafty with trading with other teams. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about in this video, because again, PK Subban is kind of the center of this video, But if you look at the Devils, there are a couple contracts that they could consider buying out, and they might want to now. Cory Schneider, of course, has been a good goaltender in the past, but definitely not where they need him to be right now. I honestly hope he turns it around, regardless of what team it's with, or if it's with the Devils. I don't know, but the other guy is PK Subban, of course, and that's why we're talking about him. And if there's only one compliance buyout awarded, well, the Devils have to choose one of those guys. Now, there's a large argument to be made that why would the Devils, want to buy out PK? Like, he still sells tickets. I know DTSB has been saying that, like, he still is a face for the team, but when you're rebuilding, when you're trying to just recoup assets, and you're trying to just eliminate, a ton of money on the books to be able to sign younger forwards, or to be able to bring in talent that you could flip for more picks at the deadline, you might just want to clear out as much as you possibly can, especially with the times that we're in right now. So PK at $9 million, if they were allowed to, remove that and get rid of Cory Schneider, get rid of him at $6 million, what we're trying to present in this video is, let's say the Devils buy out Cory Schneider. So that would eliminate the $6 million. It's not on their cap anymore. They're still paying real dollars to Cory Schneider, but it's not going against their cap. Then, in this case, we're going to bring something up that could happen. Teams that don't want to use a compliance buyout, or don't have a player that they feel, is worth using the buyout on, like they think, okay, well, we would just trade this player instead. They might be like, okay, listen, like, New Jersey, we can make this trade. You're gonna have to give us something on top of it, but we could you could buy him out, and we could buy him out for you, basically. So the Leafs could do that, but we're also considering the fact that if PK was traded to Toronto, he can't be re-signed with Toronto because they would be using the compliance buyout on him, right?
Right. The way that regular buyouts and compliance buyouts differ from each other is that when a player is bought out with a regular buyout, let's say the Devils were to trade PK Subban to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then the Toronto Maple Leafs were to buy him out, and then the Devils, let's say, wanted to then re-sign PK Subban, they could do that with a regular
Yep.
buyout. But with a compliance buyout, the league deemed it cap circumvention, and it's not legal. There are different rules and whatnot with the two buyouts. But another thing is that even if the Devils only are awarded one compliance buyout this offseason, they could use one of them on PK Subban and then just buy out Cory Schneider normally, and the cost for doing so would only be $2 million a season on their cap, and that would save them $4 million. So the Devils could have $13 million more to play around with in free agency on top of the already $25 million that they have here. And they could be serious players in a buyer's market, right? Because player salaries are completely up in the air this offseason. And for them, I think it would definitely be worthwhile to explore buying out one or both of those players, and especially both of them here, because they don't really have anyone significant to re-sign here. I mean, going through their players and whatnot, they used to have Taylor Hall. I mean, they could re-sign Taylor Hall. They could acquire Taylor Hall and Alex Pietrangelo, maybe. I mean, what are the Blues doing? So buying out PK Subban and Cory Schneider would create a lot of opportunities for the New Jersey Devils. But then what would happen afterwards with PK here? Like, how much would that even cost the Devils? Is it feasible? Because like Andrew said, like, the Devils don't really have a lot of money here to work with. So we got to consider the actual total cost and whatnot. And PK Subban would be set to make $14.5 million after he was bought out and whatnot. Could the Devils afford that? I mean, they probably could if they were supercharged to go out there and sign a couple of free agents and then really clean up next season. They could go from being a draft lottery team to being a serious contender in the Metropolitan Division and the Eastern Conference. But I mean, mentioning Cory Schneider and whatnot, you talked about him not having too great of a season here. When we're looking at these numbers here, I mean, his last 4 games played weren't too bad. But what do you think, Andrew? Should we get into more stats and whatnot? Should we talk about is PK Subban even worth it at
Yeah,
this
yeah,
point?
we'll definitely get into that. And I also just want to say, I just to clear it up, I know what I meant with the money wise was, like, the Devils don't really have the financial muscle the same way that the Leafs do. and that's something that you just touched on. I didn't mean their cap, because I know that they have a ton of money. I just meant like some teams financially, owners and people who are involved with the team might not want the team to spend that type of money outside of their cap. So that's what I meant by the financial thing. So the Leafs can show financial muscle by, paying out players to not play at all on LTIR because they have all this money. They're one of the richest teams, if not the richest team in the league now after their new arena deal. But yeah, no, PK Subban being worth it, that's something that we have to get into here, because let's say the Devils do decide to buy out PK Subban with a compliance buyout, or they trade him somewhere else and that team uses the compliance buyout, whatever option you want to go with. Is PK Subban worth picking up? We know he's physical. We know he can put up points. The dollar amount would have to be something that we look at, and that's something we're going to get into, I'm sure. But let's look at some numbers here. So why don't you walk them through what we're looking at on the screen right now?
Right. And all advanced analytics and whatnot have their inefficiencies or deficiencies and whatnot. But I like using them and comparing players, using those analytics and whatnot. And especially when we're comparing PK Subban from year to year. Here you're going to see from the 16-17 season, and I have this organized by expected goals above replacement. That's Evolving Wild or Evolving Hockey's advanced analytic that they came up with and invented, and that's their own model and whatnot. But you're going to see PK Subban was on a steep decline every single season from that 16-17 season, the first year that he arrived in Nashville, I believe, which was absolutely phenomenal. I believe he finished third in Norris voting and whatnot. But if we're looking at this year's PK Subban, and whether that be a reflection on the Devils and himself, he's nowhere near what we remember PK Subban being with the Montreal Canadiens or even the Nashville Predators for those first two seasons here. But I mean, still a player that could give you a little bit of offense there, and still someone that could be a positive contributor,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's the thing. You're hoping that when, Subban, regardless of what team he would end up with, but of course in this situation we're talking the Leafs, you would hope that he would recover a little, a little more of what he used to be. And you would hope that maybe putting on the jersey, putting on that Maple Leaf, he's obviously from Toronto, so maybe putting on that jersey gives him a little bit of a boost. And again, I think we'll talk about the fit in a little bit more of why he would maybe fit with Toronto after, we're going to be looking at a couple comparisons here, because, PK is more of an offense guy. I think, like, that's what I would say. I mean, right now it kind of seems like he could be more of I don't want to say bottom pairing guy, but he's definitely like more of a second pairing guy. Some people might even look at him as a number five with how much he's declined over the years. But you're just hoping that he has that value for your team. And like I said, in this case, Toronto, he's put up some good numbers in his career. Like the guy has definitely put up some good numbers, but you're just hoping to find that old PK physicality, that in your face type of attitude that you want him to play in meaningful games for your team. So we'll have to look into that. But again, there's probably going to be a crowd too that's going to be looking at this and saying, well, the Leafs don't need another guy like PK. They're getting rid of a guy like Tyson Barrie, who didn't exactly work out, who was playing well under Sheldon Keefe, but he didn't play good under Mike Babcock for obvious reasons. But we've got DTSB's got some more numbers here for us.
So comparing the two players here, you're going to see that PK Subban was maybe a little bit better offensively and whatnot, but like Andrew said, Tyson Barrie did play a lot better under Sheldon Keefe and whatnot, so I'm willing to call the difference in the two players here, or the discrepancies in the numbers, just even. Both players had about the same type of season, even though Tyson Barrie producing more counting stats, right? He obviously had more points than PK Subban. PK Subban only having about 18 or so, and Tyson Barrie having, something in the high 30s, like 37 or whatnot on the year. But
Yeah.
what we have to remember here is we have to contextualize these numbers, and that's what I think gets lost a lot in the analytics community and whatnot. So we're seeing PK Subban, Tyson Barrie. You're saying that they're kind of similar players and whatnot because they're both offensive defensemen. Well, it depends on how these defensemen were used, right, in the roles that they were played on. And if we come back over to PK Subban's hockey reference page and we scroll down to his zone starts, the way that he was used, the way that he was deployed by his coaches here, we're going to see that PK Subban was deployed in a more defensive role for the Devils this season than he
Right.
was offensively. And then the season before that, he was deployed a little bit more offensively by the Nashville Predators. And if I can bring back up his numbers from that Nashville seasons and whatnot, we're going to see that PK Subban in the 18-19 season was kind of an effective defenseman and whatnot when he wasn't forced to play a more of a defensive role. And if Tyson Barrie gave us these numbers and whatnot, what PK Subban was able to give the Nashville Predators that season, even being injured, I believe, for about 19 games or so, I believe he only played about 63 or so, then I think that he could be an effective defenseman, right, when we're looking at the two. And when we look at Tyson Barrie here, Tyson Barrie has always been heavily deployed in the offensive zone. And those are the type of numbers that we have to show for him. Very
Yep.
similar to PK Subban. So when we're looking at PK Subban's season in New Jersey and comparing him to Tyson Barrie and whatnot, it's important to reference how they were deployed. So do we want to take a look at how much PK Subban would be commanding? Because I think that was the problem the whole time, right? Even when there was talks of him being traded to Toronto at the deadline this year, everyone was like, we can't fit that $9 million in there. And I don't even know if he would be worth it if the Devils retained salary, whether he was worth $5 million or $4.5 million. A lot of people were really skeptical of it.
Yeah, see, and this is the biggest thing. I think a lot of people are probably going to watch this video, and if they, and maybe some people don't get this deep into the video, and they make a comment, but I would advise you guys to know that we're not saying that we're getting PK Subban at that number. He would this in this situation, he's bought out. Like he's not making anything. He's a free agent. So, it's up to the market, it's up to GMs, and it's up to him to decide, him and his agent to decide how much he would ultimately sign for. And in this situation, we're hoping that it would be, probably what, somewhere between 2.5 to $3 million on a 1 or 2 year deal, probably more likely to be a 2 year deal that he might be looking for.
Well, do you want me to pull up the armchair GM and see how PK Subban fits into the team?
Yeah, we'll do that because we're not saying that PK Subban is going to come to Toronto and get some big deal. We're saying that we want him to come in here at a fair number and be able to help this team, however he can at a cheaper number. So you guys are seeing the cap friendly right now. Of course, you're seeing the top line, Hyman, Matthews, and Marner staying the same. Mikheyev, Tavares, and Nylander still staying the same. We have Nick Robertson called up. We've both made videos on Robertson, so we'd hope that he would be there. Cheap guy, really, part of the future of the Maple Leafs. Kerfoot and Kapanen still there. Clifford at $1 million, bringing him back, hoping that he would take a bit of a discount to make a run with this team. Jason Spezza coming back on a league min deal, which we've talked about before. And if you guys haven't seen our last live stream, it was over 2 hours long. We did stuff like this, so you guys can hear about why we think Jason Spezza is going to come back. It's pretty much a guarantee. And then Barabanov coming over from Russia, his deal is signed. He's more than likely going to be on that fourth line. Never seeing the defense. Of course, Muzzin and Hall both have deals, and Morgan Riley still has his contract. You see Rasmus Sandin, and then in goal you see Freddie and Campbell, and you see PK Subban at $3 million. So, I mean, that would make sense to me. So what else are you thinking here?
Well, the one thing is that even Adam Wilde said it on the recent episode of the Steve Dangle podcast here. Well, if players' contracts aren't going to be as lucrative, right? If they're not going to be able to sign the number of years that they would have previously, if they're not going to get the big money and stuff like that, maybe guys decide that they do want to come home for a year or so. Maybe they choose the fit over the money a little bit more. And I mean, PK Subban in Toronto, like, you want to talk about pomp and circumstance and whatnot, that guy would come in here and clean up on advertising deals and whatnot. So maybe PK Subban comes for even cheaper than that, right? Because he's going to be able to make a lot of money when it comes to endorsements and whatnot in a market that just wants to have all eyes and all the cameras on him and whatnot. But you're going to see the Maple Leafs here, and they have, I do need to refresh the page, though, if we're going to be messing around with this, because the cap space isn't exactly what it should be. Okay, now you should be seeing the cap space there. $2.6
Yep.
million with this roster, and there's a couple of options here. We could just plug Travis Dermott in here, who he's projected to sign about $1.8 million or so. But Andrew, I know you're not too keen on that.
No, I love Travis Dermott, but I'm wondering if the Leafs need to find better fits for their blue line. And I know I really, really like Travis Dermott, but I'm almost wondering if the Leafs need to, this is the thing. The Leafs have tiptoed around. Can we keep this guy? Maybe it'll work. I think this year is when we have to go, okay, that we have to make a little bit of a tough decision, but this would be a better decision in my eyes with the guys that you're bringing in here. Like Subban brings the physicality, and then why don't you mention the next option that we can clearly see right there?
So I'm talking about Justin Braun here. He's a little bit of a graybeard option. He's 33 years old, having himself a decent year with the Philadelphia Flyers right now. More of a defensive guy. Maybe, you can throw him on that third pairing there. Think of like a Ron Hainsey type from a couple of years ago. Just defensively responsible. Maybe he doesn't play all the games and whatnot, because we still do have Timothy Liljegren here, right? The challenge of doing these armchair GMs, and I've said it before in my videos, is trying not to trade the top four here and getting creative with some ideas, taking advantage of circumstances like PK Subban maybe being bought out, like the unique situations that we're going to be seeing this free agency with players maybe being a little bit cheaper here. And Justin Braun at $2.5 million for 2 years, that's in and around what Evolving Wilder, Evolving Hockey has him projected with their extensive contract comparable tool and whatnot, that they throw a lot of advanced metrics behind and whatnot. And that would give the Maple Leafs some long-term flexibility and whatnot, because in 2 years from now, the Maple Leafs are going to have to re-sign guys like Morgan Rielly. They're going to have to deal with Zach Hyman and Kasperi Kapanen and whatnot. And maybe you don't want guys locked up to longer-term deals and whatnot. So that's why I think Justin Braun can be a fit. But Andrew, do we talk about PK Subban and what he can bring to this team? Like, does it make sense to play him with Morgan Rielly? They can shelter him a little bit. They can allow those guys to play a little bit more of a run and gun thing. They can shelter him a little bit so that he's not playing as much of a defensive role and whatnot. They could play him on the power play and whatnot. There are some pros and cons to that I want to get into as well. Because, like we saw what the Maple Leafs were doing towards the end there before the stoppage of the season, they flip-flopped Mitch Marner and Tyson Barrie on the power play, and they put Tyson Barrie down low across from Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner was patrolling the blue line a little bit, and that gave the Toronto Maple Leafs another shot option there across from Austin Matthews. And I mean, if you want to talk about a shot option, PK Subban's got a pretty amazing clapper, right?
Yeah, PK Subban would just be clapping bombs home all the time. And this is the thing too. By the way, long-term IR, we're using that as like they're getting traded. Janssen and Dermott, those would be our trade options. I mean, Janssen's probably guaranteed to get traded at this point, and then Dermott, because we're bringing in Justin Braun, he would get traded. And we're also working with an $82.5 million salary cap. If that was, to stay at 81 and a half, then you're probably looking at, maybe not signing, or maybe not holding on to a guy like Kerfoot, and then you're able to keep more depth somewhere else. There's a bunch of different options. We went through it on our last video on this channel on about an armchair GM, and it was like 2 hours long. But Subban would be a really good fit, like you said, like the run and gun style that they would be able to play. Subban definitely is an in-your-face type of guy. He's physical. And I think that he would fit right in with the offensive side. But I do think that he brings a little bit more, like I said, of that physicality, a little bit more of a defensive side than what we've seen from the Maple Leafs. It would give a bit of a breather to some of the guys on this team. Like Rasmus Sandin all of a sudden doesn't have to be, oh, we need you to take this massive step now. Because now you're playing with Justin Braun. He's going to be able to help you out. You're going to be able to play a little bit more offensive minded while also being responsible for Justin Braun teaching you that way. You have PK being able to play that offensive style, throwing some hits, being able to match, a Cal Clifford physicality and a, Kasperi Kapanen turning into a bit of a pest. You've got that option. You've got Mikheyev, who's getting a little chippy. Apparently Barabanov is a little chippy. So Subban would boost that as well. Like, can you imagine a shift where you've got maybe Muzzin and Subban on the ice and Clifford and, some of these guys just happen to be on the ice? I mean, that's a lot more physical than we've seen the Leafs be in the past couple of years. So you're gonna have that group effort of like, okay, we've got a new guy here that has our back, who's willing to go to war for us. And I think that, and people like, that's not even talking about that one timer. I mean, like you said, on the power play, that one timer would be lethal. It would be very, very good for the Maple Leafs to be able to set that man Subban up. And
Not
you're
just
just looking
that,
at,
but even if PK Subban's not as big of a threat anymore with his one timer, that's in the mind of everyone else on the ice, right? You can't just
yeah.
leave him wide open. And if that's on their mind, that's going to make Austin Matthews on the opposite side even more deadly now, because defensemen are going to be a little bit weary of that. Which guy do I cover? Which side of the ice am I going to here? Am I taking away the pass from that side or the other side? Because either way, it's going to be absolutely deadly.
Yeah, and like I mean, you're also allowing like you said, allowing one of those guys to be wide open. Sure, leave PK wide open. Well, that's where the puck's gonna go. Sure, nobody's gonna leave Matthews open, surely. Well, if Subban starts to wind up, he could fake that pass and send it right down low to a guy like Willie or Tavares or whoever's on the ice. Like, I mean, there's so many options, and I think that the Subban fit, I think it's gonna go over a lot of people's heads. And I mean, at the end of the day, the Devils are the ultimate ones who will make this decision. Like, they hold the keys. If Subban gets bought out by a compliance buyout, the Maple Leafs 100% are going to be one of the teams interested. I can't see how they wouldn't be, because he brings elements to this team that they don't have, and it's not at $9 million. It would be much cheaper. It would be at $2.5 to $3 million, maybe if you're pushing it 3.5. But I don't even think it'd be that much, because you got to remember, guys, just because they're getting bought out, they're still getting paid that money from before. Like, they're still getting paid. This what he would be getting over $6 million still. So he
Mm-hmm.
would, with this, he would be making, like, with endorsements in Toronto and this $3 million contract on top of the 6 million. You got to imagine PK would be cleaning up probably close to double. Like, with endorsements, you have to think he would be making almost 12 million a season. Like, the endorsements in Toronto can take you to places that you've never seen. There's like Ilya Mikheyev has only been on the team for half a year, and
that's that's like
he's a
that's
role
like the absolutely
player,
best thing ever. Like
and he
people
has
people love
a
him.
Campbell Soup endorsement. Like,
but
you're telling me PK wouldn't get every endorsement under the sun?
But it's not even about the endorsements either. Like, people have talked about PK Subban, and maybe the health isn't there because he did have some injury problems and whatnot in his career. We see a guy like Tyler Ennis got bought out by the Minnesota Wild a couple of years ago, signs in Toronto for league min on a 1-year deal, has a decent run of it with himself, signs another deal with the Ottawa Senators afterwards, and then gets traded and finds himself playing on Connor McDavid's wing. I mean, the medical staff here in Toronto does absolutely amazing and brilliant things. And if they're able to bring, let's say PK Subban's at 75% right now, if they're able to bring him up to 80 or 85% and whatnot, you're going to see a huge bargain deal there. And not to mention, him and John Tavares are like childhood friends. They've been playing on the same hockey team and stuff like that for years. I don't know. I understand why people are weary of this, and I don't even think that this is the best option that we can go through, but it is an option and it is a valid conversation to have here. So while I don't think it's maybe the best option for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it is one, and there are pros to it. I think there are more pros than cons, but there are other scenarios that would have a lot more pros than what this one has. But I don't know. For me, it just feels right. It feels right.
Yeah,
I would go out there and I'd buy his jersey right away because I would just
dude.
love it. I would love it. Could you imagine? There was that clip being passed around Twitter the other day when he absolutely crunched Brad Marchand. Could you imagine PK Subban in a 7-game series like that? It'd be awesome to watch. It'd be
Yeah,
fun. It'd be a lot of fun to see.
he's a boost to this team easily. And it's funny you mentioned the jersey thing, because I was about to say, mark my words, and I'm saying this on camera. It's gonna be posted. You're watching it right now if you've got this far. If Subban becomes a Maple Leaf, I will buy his jersey the second he signs. Like, I have no problem doing that. It's expensive. Like, that's a bit of a problem. But It would be worth it. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, no, I don't know if you had anything else to add here, but I think that we touched on a lot of different things. And I just honestly, I think it would be a really good fit. I think he's a great player. He's a great guy to have for your community as well. I think that there's added value. He's a very charitable guy.
Can I swear on this
And
channel, Andrew?
no,
No? PK,
no,
okay,
I
okay,
don't.
okay. PK Subban cares. He cares.
Yeah, I know where you're
If you
going.
want someone to care, and you want someone to see them frustrated and do something about it, PK Subban's gonna be that guy. But he doesn't have to be this guy here in Toronto. You know, if he's in the dressing room kicking himself because he made a bad turnover or he missed an open net or whatnot, he doesn't have to be the guy that makes up for it. Austin Matthews come over him, tap him on the shoulder, and be like, "Hey, man, I got you." Then he can score that goal with 5 seconds left in the third period to send it to overtime, like Matthews has done countless times.
Yeah, and like it could also be William Nylander wearing his flower shirt in the dressing room and just go, "Hey man, what's up?" He could say that too. I mean, I just had to add Nylander in there. I love
Okay,
that
okay.
guy.
I think it's a good time to wrap up the video now,
We
Andrew.
love you, Nylander. Just I love you, man. Love you.
Oh no,
You're really good. You're very very talented.
I got the jersey there.
Yeah, dude, we love this is a William Nylander love fest. Anyways, make sure you guys go and subscribe to Downtown Sports. Like I said, his link will be in the description. I'm sure most of you guys watch him by now. If you're a Leaf fan, you definitely watch his videos, or you should. Best channel on YouTube right now in terms of Leaf content. So make sure to go and subscribe there. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any last things to add there?
No, I think I'm good. I think I'm just gonna enjoy my cup of coffee while you wrap this up.
All right. Well, he's gonna drink his coffee, and I'm gonna say thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you're new, and Leaf fans, relax. It's just an option. And if you got this far, make sure to comment. We love you, William Nylander. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.